and welcome to this week's podcast with the Value Project. I am Becky.
I'm Mary.
And today we're continuing with our theme of God can't use me, I'm too ...
You nearly forgot that then.
Yeah, I did. So this week we're looking at God can't use me, I'm too doubtful, or I have too many doubts.
Mm-hmm.
So that is our theme for today. So you excited about this, Mary?
Yeah.
You sound very excited.
I am excited about this actually. It's one that I found quite tricky. I don't know why, I just found it tricky looking into it.
It's because you don't have doubts, Ella. Because I found this really easy. That's this is me all over.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say I don't have doubts because I do, but I think we talked a little bit about it in our Choosing Faith podcast. You know, it's not that I definitely do doubt things about God, but I kind of don't necessarily doubt God in Himself.
Yeah.
Much.
Whereas I've definitely gone through life. Every question has then had 3,000 doubts attached to it whenever it comes to God.
So hopefully we'll be able to bring two slightly different perspectives to it.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So we're going to, as with all the other episodes in this series, we're going to focus on a person in the Bible who can teach us about that. And we're going to, unsurprisingly, talk about the guy who's been named Doubting Thomas.
I feel so sorry for this disciple. Because bear in mind, Peter, who hung out with Jesus like Thomas did and saw the amazing stuff that Jesus did, when Jesus is still alive, somebody just gives him, oh, do you know Jesus? And he's like, no, I don't know him. 3 times he does that. Yeah. I feel like that is, we should be, calling him, reject Peter or something.
Denial Peter.
Yeah. But no, we nicknamed poor old Thomas for this, I'll let you read it, but I just felt like it's a bit harsh.
Yeah, well, so Thomas is one of the 12 disciples, and he's mentioned a few times in the Bible. There's actually a point, I haven't got the verse in front of me, which is annoying, but he's mentioned, when the disciples are trying to persuade Jesus wants to go to, I think it's Bethany, to see Lazarus, and the disciples are trying to persuade him not to, and Thomas is the one that speaks out, and he's like, hey, come on, do this. So he does seem to have a guy that, he does have a bit of, what's the word? A bit of courage behind him.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of who Thomas is.
Yeah, he's not actually mentioned that many times.
No.
The only reason I identify with him, I think, is because Thomas actually means the twin, or twin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a twin, so I feel like he's my...
But his twin is never mentioned.
Well, when they have to mention my twins.
Is that the twinless twin?
So, I feel like I identify with him. His name means twin, and I'm a twin, and he doubts, and I've doubted all my life.
Fair enough, we'll go with that. Yeah. So I'll just read a little bit about Thomas. So this is coming from John, it's reading from the NIV, coming from John chapter 20 from verse 19.
And a bit of context, Jesus has died, he's come back to life, and this is what happens.
Yeah, that's quite important context actually. Otherwise none of this makes sense. Yeah, so Jesus has come back.
And watched him die on the cross. He's come back to life. And there we go.
Yeah, so on the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Again Jesus said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." And with that he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone's sins, their sins are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven." Now Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My God, my Lord." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed."
I did notice how you swapped my Lord and my God over.
I got the words the wrong way around.
And I also noticed how you missed out when he says, "Now Thomas," also known as Didymus. You missed that out as well.
Yeah. This isn't a reading
comprehension.
But, so, the first thing I want to point out in this, which is not super relevant or holy, is the line, and with that he breathed on them. How bizarre. Like, because I guess when I read this, you picture the scenes in your head, and I just pictured Jesus stood there like...
Yeah, but I think it's a bit like, when Jesus, when God created man and woman, and they breathed on them to give them life.
Yeah.
And we know this is kind of going to have the Pentecost and all that stuff's going to happen, and so this was kind of Jesus giving them his life. If I'd known you were going to say that, I would have definitely read up around that, because I know more information than what I'm currently saying, but something about that.
I just think it's good sometimes to point out bits that you think that look strange, because then you get answers like that, which helps you understand it.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Completely off topic. If anyone's ever watched Doctor Who, and there's that bit in it's Christopher Eccleston era, and there's a bit where he's like, I give you air from my lungs and breathes over everybody. That's what it reminds me of.
Fair enough.
The next time you read this, go think of Doctor Who breathing over Asmodeans.
I'm gonna draw us back in. We've gone too rogue.
We have.
So that is the story of why Thomas is called Doubting Thomas. So Beck, is it okay as a Christian to have doubts?
This is a good question. And the answer I used to give to this would have been no. If you're a good Christian, you've got faith, you don't doubt. And this, I'm pretty sure, is why I failed a lot of the time of having any faith, or feeling like I had faith. But actually, I think, take faith out for a moment, take out God for a second. It's really natural to doubt. And sometimes it can be good for you, and sometimes it can be bad for you. So sometimes you can sit there and think, I doubt I'm going to do well in my test this week. I doubt I'm going to do very well on my driving theory. I should revise. And it motivates you to learn more. We have doubts in ourselves. It can motivate us to do better by other people or whatever. So in some respects, doubt's that isn't a bad side of doubt. The negative side of doubt can be when it's I doubt this friendship. I doubt whether this person likes me. I doubt, and sometimes those doubts, again, can be positive, that they can force you to be a better friend or get you to be a better friend. But equally, it can destroy friendships because you can spend the whole time worrying what other people think of you. So doubt in itself is natural, and doubt in itself has good and bad points to it. And I think that also kind of applies when it comes to faith and doubt. I used to see faith being the opposite of doubt. And for me, that's definitely changed in recent years, because I suddenly realised that actually, I do have faith. My faith is the bit that's harder to change. It's the bit that's in me that I can't explain to people very well. Why do you believe? It's just have faith. But I also have doubts on the other side as well. I've always asked questions. I've always gone. In the past, it used to be do I even believe in God? Do I even, there used to be. But sometimes now it's is God a good God? Is God, is there? And there's this days I ask it, do I actually believe that? Do I actually believe what I've read in the Bible? Do I believe what that? Do I actually believe that? So to be a good Christian, is it bad to ask questions? No, I don't think it's bad. Actually, if we ask questions, that's where we learn. And if you don't ever ask, how do you ever learn anything? If you never, But I think some people who've got the deepest faith have the deepest doubts. For some people who have kind of easily just believe, well, it's not such a challenge. You don't have to ask those questions to know it. Whereas, for some people, it's you've had to dig in. You've had to really trust God, but you've also had to really kind of ask those difficult questions and have those times of doubt. So, can you be a Christian in doubt? Yes, you can be a Christian in doubt. But I think the real question is, how do you deal with doubt? Because I think that defines what your faith looks like, and that defines what you do.
Yeah. And I think something that we can learn throughout the Bible, and there are so many examples of it, and we'll touch on a few of them over the next kind of few episodes of this series, but doubt doesn't stop God from working or God from doing his thing.
I think you'd be, apart from Jesus, I think pretty much every person in the Bible you look at has had a point where they go, but God, you can't. I mean, really, we should have called this whole series on God, you can't use that. I doubt you can use me because everyone's got a reason why they doubt God. They doubt God's, even his goodness, his existence, or doubt his ability, or doubt his promises. Every point of the way in the Bible, you can think of pretty much anyone, and they'll at some point have doubted or questioned God. And yet, we know that God uses them.
Yeah, yeah. And the fact that, God knows us, and God knew Thomas, and he knew his heart, and Jesus knew his heart. And actually when Jesus was, appointing and picking his disciples, he would have known that it was within Thomas that he might have that doubt. But actually Jesus still chose him, still chose to, this is a really, we're talking 12, it's a really tight-knit group, that, and Jesus chose him to be part of that. Even though he had these doubts, that wasn't something that stopped Jesus from wanting to use him and work with him and invest in him.
And we see Jesus answer that doubt. You could easily just not. He could just not said anything. He could have just gone, if you say so. And how many times? Well, I know for me, there's times that I've doubted stuff and I've not voiced that.
Yeah.
No one knows but me that I've had that doubt. But actually, the fact that he said, the fact that he said it out loud, well, unless I see it, Jesus acted on that. Jesus kind of said, look, here's my hand. And ultimately, what he does is he did the same to the disciples just before. It wasn't like the other disciples just heard about it. That's why I think it's always harsh on Thomas. Because it wasn't like the other disciples just got told and they believed. They saw him as well.
Yeah.
They saw him, and then he just had trouble believing in it. And it does go on to say about blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. That is, and I do believe God gives people as a gift of faith.
Yeah.
And some people get that, but some people do ask questions. But God doesn't say, he says, blessed are those who have not seen and have yet believed. But he doesn't say, but everybody else is cursed, you're going to hell, goodbye.
Yeah.
He says, look, here's my scarf.
Yeah. Having doubts doesn't make your relationship with God any less.
Yeah.
It doesn't make, that any less at all.
Yeah. And what was the first thing that comes out of Thomas's mouth when he sees it? He says, my Lord and my God.
Yeah.
He straight away can see who Jesus is. So it wasn't and that doesn't come from somebody who has no faith. That comes from somebody who had doubted, but had faith.
Yeah. So I guess kind of along those lines of how do we deal with a doubt, but also how can God help us with our doubt? It's something that strikes me when reading this is the thing that Jesus says when he sees them each time. The first thing he says is peace be with you, and it's Jesus' offering in this is peace. And when you have doubts that, it can be really really difficult. It can really churn you up. It can make things seem really really turmoily and hard. And so what Jesus is offering here is you have these doubts, but I bring peace. That is the first thing he brings when he sees them is peace. So and that is something we can absolutely pray for, because if you're having these doubts, there's sometimes you have to, and again this is similar to what we've talked about before, but it's about making a choice about what's the most important here. And is it going to be your doubt that you let rule, or is it going to be your faith that you let rule? And what you might need to make that decision is just God, give me some peace over this. Take away the how much this churns me up, and let my faith rule. That doesn't necessarily mean I don't still have the doubts, but it's about kind of how you're I guess the lens in which you're viewing life and viewing your faith. You're viewing it through the eyes of God, I believe in you, rather than the God, I doubt you.
Yeah, I think as well. I really just think we have to stop seeing doubt and faith as being the opposites to each other, because I think we put guilt on ourselves then.
Yeah.
And actually, your faith isn't an emotional thing. It isn't based on, but actually it can be easy to see it like that, as in, if you're having a good day, it's easy to be yeah, I believe in God. And if you're having a bad day, it's a lot harder to say that. But actually, it's okay. It's okay to have days when you question God.
Yeah.
God's big enough to take it.
Yeah.
And the other side of it is actually, you really, we've said, I think it is similar to when we talked about choosing faith. But you do have a choice of what you do with those times of those questions. The people do walk away from faith when they have doubts. That happens, So you've got that just choice really to be well, am I going to try and fight for this, or am I walking away from it?
Yeah. And I think something you said there about guilt is really important as well. Like, don't feel guilty for having doubts. Like, there's guys in the Bible that are having doubts, and like Jesus was literally right in front of them, like flesh and blood in front of them.
Yeah, he frequently said to them, "You of little faith."
Yeah, you know, when Jesus came up to Peter walking on water, and then that whole like the thing happened, and Jesus said, you know, why did you doubt? And when Peter started to sink. But it's like, he was walking on water. Like, you think when you hear these stories, like, well, if I was walking on water, I certainly wouldn't doubt. Because I'd be like, I'm walking on water. But actually, like, these guys doubted. So it's, you know, we are going to doubt. And, like, don't beat yourself up about that. Don't, like, say, think your relationship with God is any less. It isn't. Like, it's okay.
Most of the time, for me, if I've had a time of real doubt, it tends to be the time where I have real growth. Because it's the time I have to make that choice to draw close to God and be like, God, I don't know where you are in this, or God, I don't even know if I believe in what I'm reading or what I'm, you know, where is it in this? That for me is when growth happens. It's nearly always when I've had doubt. It's like, because it brings me in close.
I think something else we can learn from this as well is about the importance of putting ourselves in environments to like support us. You know, in the first time the disciples are together in a locked room, it says for fear of the Jewish leaders, they'd gathered in a room and they'd locked the doors as like a place of safety. But also kind of a place in which, like, you know, Jesus, who had just died, like they could kind of feel as close to him as possible, I guess. Although knowing that thinking he died, well, he had died, but you know, we're not going to get into the resurrection right now. But they were together in that, and then you know, when Jesus appeared and they had that together, which Thomas wasn't. But actually, the time when Thomas then saw Jesus was when he was with them. So it's like, sometimes it's about finding an environment around us which, and this isn't to say, if I put myself in this situation, everything will be fine. It's about knowing perhaps people around you, knowing like places, knowing certain attitudes around you to help you. And like say, it's not like a totally assured thing, but generally if you're placing yourself in a church rather than not in a church, then you're placing yourself in a position that you're better supported to have those doubts and question things, but have people around you to kind of support you. And sometimes like other people's beliefs and stories, like it can really, really build you up and can become part of your own belief and story without directly necessarily impacting on you.
Because the natural thing often, I think, when you have doubts is to hide it. And therefore when you hide it, you then feel uncomfortable being in church, and then you want to walk away and people leave church, or you know, don't want to be with their Christian friends and stuff. And then you're on your own. And we're never told to be on our own without faith. We're always told to be with others. We're always told to be part of the church, be part of a community, be part of Christians around us. You know, the time you most need that is when you have doubts and questions, and it's to be honest and to voice it and to ask it and to say it.
And actually, if you're someone that's listening to this thinking, well, I don't really struggle with doubt very much, like that's not something I really feel, then your role in this is to create a space where it's okay for people to bring their doubts. Like, create an environment in your church or your friends or whatever, family, whatever it may be, that if someone can be vulnerable and say, I've read this bit in the Bible and I'm going to be honest, I just don't see how that can happen. Like, make it okay to have those conversations.
The worst thing to say to somebody when they're having doubts is like, you just have to believe. Or you just need a bit more, when someone prays and nothing happens, you just need a bit more faith. It's the worst thing to say, because actually that isn't always the case.
So
the biggest thing in all of this, though, is God is faithful to us, and we can doubt God, but he can still use us. Every time in the Bible somebody doubts him, he doesn't walk away and say, sorry, you doubted me, goodbye, end of the line. Nah, he sticks around. We can doubt him, we can turn our back on him, but he never doubts us, and he never turns his back on us. You know, see it over and over again. Abraham and Sarah, God says he's going to give him a baby. Sarah's like, nah, ain't going to happen. They even go around their own way of getting babies and stuff. But ultimately, God doesn't let their doubts, Sarah's doubts, be what defines it. She still goes on and has a baby that is promised to them. All the way along, Jesus is faithful, and Jesus is bigger than our doubts. So we can have doubts, we can have questions. We have to choose how we respond to that,
Yeah.
But Jesus is always going to be there.
Yeah. And I guess that's the one message to take away from that, from this today, I hope, is, like you say, you might have doubts in God, but God doesn't have doubts in you.
Yeah. And he'll be there, and you just need to bring it to God. Like, just say, you might not get an answer straight away or how we expect it. We often don't, because that's how God doesn't work in the way that we think he should.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we
So as a Christian, yes, you can have doubts.
Yeah. That is the punchline.
Yeah. So God can't use you because you've got doubts? Well, we disagree with you there.
We do.
God will use you regardless of your doubts.
Yeah.
And sometimes those doubts will make you stronger. So then,
Should we end with a prayer?
go on then.
Dear God, we just thank you that you don't doubt us, that you love us, and that you are faithful. And we pray today that we could all just be a little bit more honest and a little bit more vulnerable about the doubts that we have, to bring them to you. And that just as you did with Thomas, you would affirm us through your kind of gentle, glorious ways. Amen. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Value Project. Whatever you're doing today, we hope you have a beautiful day.